honestly, I adore Elizabeth Warren for a variety of reasons. Those of you who are familiar with her know that she is an extremely erudite, extremely articulate person who knows finance inside and out, and who has had the courage to stand up and talk about some of the financial abuses that have been endured by this country. I think she would make an excellent jurist. She is known for being restrained, but she's while still being tough, and I think that that's a really great balance to have. The other one is Ann Williams, and Ann Williams has been on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Illinois for many years. She's an African-American woman. She's a brilliant woman. She is a jurist of high quality. She is on a panel of the Seventh Circuit that decides a lot of critical cases that's extremely balanced between right and left interests. She's able to get along well with some of her more conservative jurists like Judge Posner. But she has constantly, consistently made judgments that are reflective of our values while being very much in keeping with the Constitution of the United States. So I would recommend Ann Williams. How do you get it through the Senate? Well, you know, I have been writing on Facebook, those of you who follow me, about the danger of the precedent being set by Mitch McConnell. Because what he's saying, essentially, is you can only appoint Supreme Court justices if your party is in control of the Senate. And that's a really, really stupid place to be. Because one of the great things about the United States is that not only do we voluntarily cede power to the opposing party if they win, but we are able to share power even if we lose. We are willing to accept that result. We would not have Justice Alito and Justice Roberts if Democrats did not affirm them. And they did it knowing that those guys were going to be conservative, which they are. But they accepted it because that was the prerogative of George W. Bush as President of the United States to do so. We don't have to like it. The only thing the Senate has to decide is, are these people qualified? Not do I like them, or even do I agree with them. So if the new rule is you only get a justice if your party is in the Senate, then okay. But that does not inure to the long-term benefit of the GOP, because their population is dying off. And if the new rule is you only get to have Supreme Court justices affirmed if your party is in the White House, then guess what? We may never have another conservative justice again. Watch what you are doing.
Congressman? Well, I agree with Pam 100%. Be careful what you wish for. I actually started a petition drive and wrote an open letter to the President on Tuesday begging him to appoint Elizabeth Warren to the Supreme Court. I personally can't think of anybody myself who would be better, except possibly me, but leaving that aside, I might not get the approval of the Senate, who knows. But you know, it would be an interesting thing, because people say that the Senate is the, how shall I put this, the most exclusive club in the world. And when you nominate a senator to the Supreme Court, as actually has happened many times before, there have been a dozen senators and a dozen congressmen who were appointed to the Supreme Court, more than a dozen. What you're doing is you're saying, we're taking one of you and elevating you. So I think that it would be they'd be hard-pressed to explain why a member of the Senate could not be approved by the Senate in order to do that. But I also invited the President to make a recess appointment. The Constitution says that when the House and the Senate are out of session, the President has the authority to make a recess appointment. That appointment remains in effect until the following year when the new Congress reconvenes. You know, by coincidence, when Justice Scalia, who, by the way, I worked with 30 years ago, when he passed away, he happened to pass away at a time when Congress was in recess. I pointed that out to the President on Tuesday. He has until midnight on Sunday night to take my advice and make an appointment and basically nullify, supersede, eliminate the debate about whether the Senate can sit on a presidential appointment for a year or more. I think that's actually the easy way to deal with this issue, to have a recess appointment, whether it's Elizabeth Warren or anybody else. But I do agree wholeheartedly that as somebody who actually was a law clerk, a judge's assistant for 2.5 years of my life, I agree that it's unfair to the court system, it's unfair to the litigants, it's unfair to any system that calls itself a justice system to basically shut it down. They're shutting it down.
Battery dying on that one?
To shut it down, yeah, there we go. To shut it down for a year simply because some people want to play politics.
Thank you. Tiger's here for a treat. We got a brand new member just joined here today. So welcome new Tiger Baseball member, Matt Schersheimer, right? All right, ask away, man.
So again, my name is Matt Dersheimer. I'm an engineer here in Tampa. I'm a millennial and I'm American. I just got back from Denver, Colorado, and without going into specifics, I'll say I embraced democracy.
Amen.
So my question to you as senators, what would you do with marijuana? Would you decriminalize it? Would you remove it from the Controlled Act, or Controlled Substances Act? What would you do?
Thank you.
I love your question. Welcome back. First of all, I would say that one of the things that's important for senators to realize what they can and cannot do. Most of the criminal laws are really state-based laws. So you as a senator really can't go in and say, okay, I'm going to tell Iowa what they can and cannot do. However, the Senate does have some say with respect to federal policy and federal drug policy, and I think that's really important that you exercise that judiciously. My view personally is that it is absurd that marijuana is criminalized, period, because it makes no sense. It is intellectually inconsistent. If the rule is we make things illegal that make you disoriented or alter your mental state, then alcohol should be illegal. If the rule is we make things illegal that are bad for you, then cigarettes should be illegal. If the rule is we make things illegal that are, can possibly be addictive, then, painkillers should be illegal. I mean, the truth of the matter is the only basis for making marijuana illegal is that somebody had some psychological problem with it a long time ago. Well, okay, but we've evolved, all right? And so now, not only do we make marijuana illegal, but we waste umpteen taxpayer dollars chasing people because of it, criminalizing them, prosecuting them, putting them in jail. I don't want my tax dollars housing people because they decided to get high. That's stupid. So, I also happen to be a capitalist. And in my view, if there's money to be made in growing and selling marijuana, I am all for it. I happen to live in a state that is known for sunshine. And so from my perspective, there are tremendous business opportunities here. Not just because we can grow really good recreational weed, which we can, but because there's evidence that there are really good medical uses for marijuana. Now, I will never find it okay to say to someone who is suffering from glaucoma or brain cancer or some epilepsy or some other condition that they shouldn't have marijuana that will actually help them because I have a psychological problem with marijuana. Where is the logic in that? That's absurd. It's also morally dubious. So, for every reason, I fully support the decriminalization of marijuana. I fully support research in marijuana's uses for medical reasons, and I fully support a really robust industry in growing a very likely cash crop right here in Florida.
Thank you, Ms. Congressman.
Speaking of recreational substances, you're a new member? Well, I just want to say you all welcome new members in much the same way that AA does, with tremendous enthusiasm. Okay, I have a record on this. I supported the medical marijuana initiative in 2014. I voted to allow doctors at Veterans Administration hospitals to prescribe medical marijuana, and I've been to Colorado too. Thank you.
Shersheimer, you stole my thunder, man. As executive director, my name is Christopher Cano. I'm the executive director for the Central Florida chapter of NORML, which is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I want to say, Pam, thank you very much. That was very enlightening. Your stance is very refreshing. Congressman, we endorsed you last election cycle. Thank you for your leadership as well. But moving on to a more serious note, which affects a lot of American jobs, where do each of you stand on the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal and the fact that it's going to cost millions of American jobs, much the way NAFTA has?
I am on record and was from the very beginning to be against the TPP, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not because I'm against trade generally, and I'm not. The problem with TPP, like the problem with NAFTA, is that it has this provision that we call job protection provisions. And what that really typically looks like is we say, okay, we're going to have these great open trades of a country like, let's just say Vietnam. And what we're going to do to protect American jobs is tell Vietnamese people to stop hiring child labor. We're going to tell the Vietnamese to make some tweaks to their labor markets. And that way, there'll be less of an incentive for an American company to ship a job to Vietnam. The truth of the matter is that we have never been able to enforce those job protections, ever. So what happens is that thing that was put there ostensibly to disincentivize the offshoring of jobs is utterly impotent. And so what we do is we create a situation where more and more jobs can get offshored, and as we've seen from NAFTA, that's exactly what happened. Jobs went to Mexico that used to be done here, and not a few, many, many, many jobs went to Mexico. So the question is there another way to do job protections? I think there is. And I'm just going to throw this out for consideration. There were a lot of companies that benefit from NAFTA. There are a lot of companies that are going to benefit from TPP. In fact, their lobbyists are the ones who wrote it. So my question is, why can't we hold those companies accountable for ensuring that they don't offshore their jobs? Here's a new thought. How about making sure that those companies actually commit to keeping a certain percent of jobs here in the United States? And if they fail to do so, they might encounter a fine, perhaps a substantial one. Because, see, that means taking control of something we actually do have control over, the companies that are here, rather than trying to control something we have no control over, as in what companies in Vietnam do. It's a different way of thinking about job protections. We keep thinking that we cannot tell companies what to do. You're right, we can't. But we can make it a good business decision not to do it. And that's what I would support.
Congressman?
Well, this is a really interesting subject, I have to say. For those of you who are really interested in this, I suggest you go to our website called tradetreachery.com. And you'll see a 9-minute video that I put together because I very much wanted to be able to explain this subject at length. This is extremely, extremely important. It never makes the news. People can't find out about it any other way. What we're talking about here is the fact that we now have, as I alluded to earlier, an $11 trillion trade debt, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership would make that worse. Now, let's talk about this. That means that every single person in this room, pro rata, owes $40,000 to foreigners. Are you ready to pay it back? Raise your hand if you can pay back that money tomorrow.
I can't pay back my student loan.
Can't pay back your student loan. That's exactly right. Now, I tell people this, well, that can't be right. Well, yes, it is right. We went from a $2 trillion trade surplus to $11 trillion trade debt in the past 20 years. Before NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Act, went into effect, we had never had a trade deficit in any year of more than $135 billion. Every single year since then, every single year, we've had a trade deficit of over $135 billion. In fact, the last 14 trade deficits are the largest trade deficits in our history, the largest trade deficits on planet Earth, and I would venture to say probably the largest trade deficits anywhere in the Milky Way galaxy. That's how bad it is right now. Our trade deficit is over $1 billion a day. Now, what is the trade deficit? It sounds like it's some kind of number, but actually it's a concept. And the concept is this. We're buying their stuff. We're putting tens of millions of them to work. They're not buying an equal amount of our stuff. That's what the trade deficit is. So how does that work? Well, we're going deeper and deeper into debt to pay for their stuff. And we lose twice. We lose the jobs, and we get driven toward national bankruptcy. That's what this is really all about. We've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs since NAFTA went into effect. 5 million of them. And now, with the TPP, they want to make it worse. As Pam described, there are 500 lobbyists who basically wrote the TPP. Now, I happen to be the first member of Congress to actually see the TPP, okay? Because I insisted on it. 100 other members asked, and they were ignored. I asked, and I said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. So what they did was they brought it over to my office. They filled my office with 12 people. They brought it over to me, and they said, it's classified, although it's not classified. They said, you can't have any staff in the office. You can't take any notes. You can't talk to any media about it, and you can't even talk to other members of Congress about it. Well, the 500 lobbyists that Pam was referring to not only could read it, they could write it. And they did write it. And this is the bill, the treaty, if you will, that's being foisted on us right now through what's called the fast-track procedures, which I also oppose because it's a derogation of our constitutional duty. They have now jimmied this to the point where each member of Congress gets 83 seconds to debate it. 83, I can't even answer this question in 83 seconds. How could I possibly address all the nuances of the TPP in 83 seconds? But I'll give you one example of just how bad it is. All right? If you have a claim against our government, you have to go across the street from the White House to the U.S. Claims Court, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, which I've appeared before as an attorney, and you have to file your claim with the Court of Federal Claims. That's been the procedure now for 200 years. This TPP sets up a different procedure. Not for you, not for American companies, not for foreign citizens, but only for foreign corporations. And these foreign corporations don't have to go across the street to the White House. They don't have to apply U.S. law. They can go to the World Bank, and they can get a judgment from the World Bank whenever anything in the United States they consider is impairing their God-given right to profit. Okay, so we're talking about our clean water laws, we're talking about our clean air laws, we're talking about our worker safety laws, we're talking about our public safety laws. We're talking about anything having to do with our environment, anything at all